For today's video, we will be discussing about the global interstate system. For a very long time, states have been the dominant actors in international affairs. The continued interaction between and among states formed a pattern governed by norms, rules, and principles, among others. These patterns or rules governing the interaction among states are what we call as the interstate system. To easily understand, interstate system is otherwise known as the international system. However, we used state instead of nation to emphasize that our focus here is not nation but the states themselves. In the contemporary world, the interstate system has been organized around the principles of state sovereignty, territoriality, and non interference, which we will be tackling as we go along our discussion. Through the course of studying international politics, there are now several competing views about interstate system, to wit, realism, liberalism, constructivism, and Marxism. These theories give different assumptions with respect to the behavior of states and the structure of international system. So let's start with realism. The central argument of realism is that states always compete for power. Power may be in the form of military capabilities, strong economy, internal stability, and foreign alliances. Realists focus much attention on conventional and military security issues. Perhaps the reason of having much focus on it is primarily because they are pessimistic or suspicious of long-term possibility of peace. So why do realists emphasize the role of power? Or why are they pessimistic of long-term peace? Because they also assume that the structure of international system is anarchy. Now, let us define anarchy. What does it mean when we say anarchy? So anarchy means absence of central authority. But in the context of interstate system, it means absence of authority that can protect states from one another. Thus, there is constant possibility of conflicts. Because of these, realists assume as well that states are rational actors wherein their paramount concern is self-interest. In other words, states only act if it is beneficial to them. Let's now move on to the realist's suggestion to attain stability. According to realists, power should be evenly distributed to make the interstate system stable. So there are three systems on power distribution. A unipolar system where there is only one hegemon or superpower, a bipolar system where there are two equal hegemons or two superpowers, and a multipolar system where there are more than two superpowers. For the realists, bipolar system is better than multipolar system. Why? Because for them, the power calculations are easier, unlike in a system where there are many superpowers, where power dynamics is difficult to predict. Case in point, World Wars I and II illustrates the instability of multipolar system. Finally, realists downplay the significance of international organizations like UN as well as international laws. Why? Because they adhere to the idea that there is no higher authority than state themselves. To proceed, we have liberalism. So the second theoretical perspective in interstate system is liberalism. The same with realism, this theory has its own assumptions. They assume that states are rational actors and that the international system is anarchic. However, unlike realism, liberalists are optimistic about long-term peace. They believed that although there is anarchy in the international system, but it can be managed. By what? By international organizations, economic interdependence, and democracy. The three that I mentioned are considered to be responsible for the peace in the post-Cold War era. So let us try to discuss each of them. First, although there is anarchy in the system, but there is a presence of regime that feels the absence of central authority. For the benefits of everyone, what is a regime? So when we say regime, it is a governing arrangement composed of principles, norms, rules, and decision-making procedures around which an actor's expectation converge in a given area of international relations. Example of a regime is the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Basically, international regimes serve to prescribe and proscribe certain state actions, creating duties and obligations without a hierarchical legal system. This entails that regimes can affect expectations, and because of that, it redefines states' perception of their self-interest. Second, economic interdependence. Liberalists argued that economic interdependence minimizes conflicts among states. They opined that since states are rational actors, then it is not in the state's best interest to sacrifice the benefits of economic ties by engaging in a costly conflict. To note, wars only result to a mutually assured economic destruction. Finally, democracy. Liberalists opine that democratic system has an inherent mechanisms that keep leaders accountable in their decisions. Example, principles of checks and balances, or the elections. These principles keep leaders from pursuing hostile policies, or else leaders might be held accountable or their approval rating might decrease, which would affect tremendously their political influence. In conclusion, realism suggests that the states are the dominant actors in the interstate system, and there is no authority that can pacify states' self-interest because of its strict view and adherence of the principle of sovereignty. On the other hand, liberalism postulates that there are other factors that affect the international system and the behavior of states. These are regimes, international organizations, economic interdependence, and democracy. So that's all for today. For Constructivism and Marxism, I will be uploading a separate video for these topics. Thank you, and I hope you learned something from this discussion.